So it's 11 o'clock and we're live on Zoom. So very much opportunity to give you a warm welcome to our webinar today for the furniture makers, entitled More Than Salaries, Nurturing Talent and Fostering a Positive Culture. So just a quick introduction. My name is Peter Holland. I'm the principal of Linear Structure. So we're a firm that's specializing in maximizing sales performance. And it's my pleasure to be your host this morning and with my expert panel. So let me introduce you to them. First of all, let's go with ladies first. So Caroline Gascoigne, we welcome you from DFS. She's the National Qualifications Manager for DFS. So good morning to you.
Morning, Peter.
Nice to see you. And Alistair Goff, CEO at the OC Group. And welcome to you, Alistair, as well.
Yeah, morning, everybody. Thank you.
And Jesper, welcome as well from the company TMJ Interiors, where you're the operations director. So welcome to you as well.
Good morning.
So just so you know a little bit more about the Furniture Makers. If you don't know about the Furniture Makers is the London livery company and charity for the furnishing industry. So championing best practice in the industry, manufacturing, design, education, and also supporting people maybe in need with charitable affairs as well. So this subject, I think, arguably is probably one of the most important for anybody in business, is to find talent, develop it, and keep the talent. So this morning, we were just going to have a chat around 3 questions and just think about some of the insights, some of the experiences that you've had going along, trying to develop this idea into your business, because it's so vital, isn't it? Maybe we could just start off with that question. Why do you feel that this subject is really worthwhile investigating? If someone maybe is looking in this morning and thinking, okay, my business is doing okay, but why do you think it's so important that we look at this idea of the talent retention, development, and culture in an organization? Alistair?
Yeah, yeah, sure. Happy to kick off. I mean, it is an old cliche, isn't it, that any business is about its people, and it's something that's often said, and in many examples not actually followed through, and certainly over many years I've enjoyed my career, then it's certainly something that I absolutely put at the heart of the business. And we very much focus on recruiting on values. So if you've got the right values as the reference point, then that drives the right culture. And if you've got the right culture, then you should end up doing the right things that get the right outcome. So that's very much how we approach it, of being really clear about our purpose and what we want to achieve, and then having the environment or the best environment that can achieve that. And that will only be delivered, I believe, by having the best people, and having the best people means attracting the right talent for the roles and the responsibilities that are in place, and then ensuring that there is always a very clear reference point from that role and that person of what they're contributing to the overall direction of the business and the objectives of the business. So I think that real clarity for everybody about the role that they're playing, and then making sure that they're rewarded. And reward for me doesn't just mean the financial reward. It's about that person's aspirations, their career ambitions, and or how they want to do the best work that they can, and but making sure that they're part of that journey, and recognizing them, rewarding them, developing them, supporting them through the good times, but also through more challenging times. And we've certainly known about that over the last couple of years.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's our overall approach, Peter.
Yeah, excellent. I think that's so key, isn't it? Because that first question, guys, that we were going to look at is, how do you create an organisation that people genuinely don't want to leave? I don't know what your thoughts. Some examples, maybe Caroline, that you share with us of how you've seen that, because I know we've been working together. It's over 5 years ago now. We started our first best practice day on apprenticeships. And that was very much based around, skills, in the workshop and manufacturing. So how things kind of developed for you over that time?
Yeah, we've really now as an organisation kind of embraced everything around apprenticeships, and we've been trying to reach out to people and encourage them to take the opportunity. We're all paying this apprenticeship levy and not really using it to its full potential. So in the summer of last year, we launched career pathways, starting with retail. So anyone who joins within retail can see a clear route that they can take to one day get to a director level if they wished. So where you can join us on a level 2, then move through the levels 3, the level 4, the level 5, the level 6. So it's about empowering people to take control of their own careers. So rather than historically, people would be handpicked to go on these development programs, now they can actually go out there, see what's available and put their own name forward. So it's a self-nomination process to say, look, this is what I want to do. Obviously have to discuss that with the line manager to make sure they're aiming at the right level. But it's giving everyone those opportunities so that when positions come up, they've shown that they've already started to put that hard work in, and they've already developed the skills required for that role, so that when they do get kind of promoted into store managers, as an example, they're ready for that. Whereas sometimes I think we've been guilty of promoting people because they're really good at what they do, and then we give them this higher position without giving them the new skill set to do that, and then they'll end up just copying what they've seen, get a little bit out of their depth sometimes, that can ultimately end up with them leaving or being demoted and getting demoralized. So I think it's big ticks all the way through. And I, just as you were talking now, I remember when I left school at 16, it was very much about trying to join an organisation where I could work my way up and stay there for a long career. And some of those values, I think, over the years, is almost discouraged. And it's almost, we've created a culture as a nation of you've got to company hop in order to move on. So I think having progression pathways for people brings it back to, look, you can develop within the same organisation. And when you've grown within that organisation, what you give back and your loyalty to them, I think, stays. That makes you stronger as a business.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Just jumping in there, and I'm going to certainly echo Caroline and Alice's comments. And I think, if we're talking about creating an organisation, staff who don't want to leave, we've got this superpower that we don't use very often. It's the ability to listen, and we've got to this whole listen to respond rather than listen to understand. We've got to use that, be really genuine with our team. And I think showing a few points on this about sort of really showing appreciation of the team, making them feel worth, a real worth, retain information about your staff, understand about your staff. They may have a certain hurdle in their life, or they may have something that's going on. You need to follow that up. You need to recognize that, because that just gives the support, and the ability to sort of talk it out, catch up with your team, encouraging managers to communicate with your team continually, create a platform to talk. And that's, I think that's something that's really underutilized in companies. I'm sure you've all been through that yourselves, and that journey of learning that ability to listen.
Definitely. I think, just jumping in, yes, I think it's a really good point. And we're all influenced from our childhood and our career progressions, aren't we, ultimately? And I'm certainly very fortunate to have a couple of really great mentors as I was developing my career. And that's what you've just said is one of the things they did. They stood out because they listened to what my objectives were, and clearly they've got to be aligned to what the company's objectives were and the organisation's. But it was that listening, and how do we ensure that's aligned to get the best option from me? But that was the culture of that business. I happened to changed numerous roles over 30 years in that company before I got involved in my own business, and I stayed in the same company but had probably 10 roles in that company over that period because of that approach. That was, we listened to each other and they listened and then gave you opportunities that you probably didn't realize that you were capable of, but they'd listened, they'd understood, and they'd supported. And I think what you said is exactly right.
Yeah, so just picking up on a couple of those things, I think that were really stood out to me is one, this idea of promoting, but then not supporting with the skills and the coaching to enable that person. Because very often, just because they were good at that particular task, it is a new skill set to maybe manage or develop a team. So I really thought that that's a valuable point to take away. Not to assume that they're going to be great at it straight away, because I see this every day in sales. Great salespeople go to manager, they don't actually like it, right? A very different character that's managing a team to going out there and doing the stuff that they do on a daily basis. And I think that's so true, Caroline. What you're saying is the sad thing is that then they feel bad about themselves, they haven't succeeded, and they leave you. So there's a real kind of disconnect there. And then secondly, I guess just talking as you were there about this communication, Jasper, that you're connecting with people on a personal level as well as a business level, which ties in really with what you were saying earlier, Alistair, about the values. So we've got a value-driven organization, then that's just not business values, is it? It's personal values as well, tied together. And then people feel that emotional attachment to you. They're gonna want to stay, right? They're gonna want to stick with you on the loyalty side. So just thinking then about this idea of what does an internal culture look like that retains staff. We've touched on that. Things have changed so much, haven't they, over the last couple of years? So we're now dealing with not just the sort of regular silos that you get, Jasper. I know we were talking about this, but we're also talking about the virtual world versus maybe working face to face. How has that kind of impacted the culture and of your organizations?
I think from my side, I think we're still all going through a journey, actually. We think we've been through the journey and the idea of working from home and having this sort of hybrid working, and now we're sort of coming out of hopefully we're coming out of what we've just been through, and people are now sort of in turmoil again, to really understand what how you collaborate, how you work together, and how how they make the best of their environment, and how we as employers make the best of that environment. And that's something certainly we found very challenging through trying to keep that culture, but you've had this sort of hand grenade thrown in of you thought you were getting the culture right, and then suddenly this new world has opened up to people, and you're now sort of rethinking and reimagining exactly what you're trying to achieve. So we've certainly gone through. We have the sort of creative side of our company, and we have the very structured ordered. Your surveying, your accounting, your processes such as that. So we've gone through quite a journey in the sense of losing that collaborative behavior in design and the development of a product, and how you all work together and you sketch and you talk and you turn around to your peer and you work together, and suddenly it's now on a screen, and you're trying to work out how you do it. I think what's got to be added to this is also productivity as a concern, because it's added. Every Teams call is a hello, how are you? What have you been up to? Which we want that. We want to. We certainly don't want to reduce that or suppress it, but we also need to be getting on with our work. Because ultimately that's what we're here. So it is a real challenge. I think the whole hybrid side is still up in arms, and what is going to work best for people. But we need to, if we're going to have the right culture, then we need to listen again, and to understand really what is going to work best for our team, because ultimately the company is nothing without the team, but also for the company. And we have to, there's some hard decisions we've got to make this work.
Yeah, definitely. Anybody else had any sort of experiences of how that is working, or maybe not working for you, that you're working to improve?
I think, like Jasper said, when you're moving from people have had to adapt their lives and had to change their lives to fit working from home, and making the most of that opportunity to be able to do school runs, collect children from school. So they've made some big adjustments. So I think after 2 years of people reevaluating their lives almost, now we're coming out the other end and trying to encourage to go back into a workplace. I think it's, like you said, listening to people and speaking to people as individuals to find out what their situation is, what adjustments they've made, but then what help do they need in almost readjusting again. Because every time we've thought we're getting back to some normality, the rug's been pulled out from under people several times throughout the 2 years. And I think in particular with younger people, like we were saying earlier, and it's not something I'd thought of till recently, when we've had a young apprentice start with us. These young people, they've hardly been into school for 2 years. They've hardly had an opportunity to mix with their friends for 2 years, and when it has, it's been limited numbers and socially distanced. And then he started with us in a job role, knew what that job role was, going into customers' homes, but he's just found it all a bit too much. With people's temperament now and their frustrations when things have been late and then they're not right, and it really wasn't something that I'd thought about, and until that's kind of happened this week, and you think, wow, well, this poor young man has probably hardly mixed with anyone outside of his family for 2 years, and suddenly we're throwing him in at the deep end without maybe doing enough work up front before we've thrown him out there. I mean, he wasn't on his own, he's been with people, but it's still daunting, isn't it? Even being sat in a car with someone every day when they've been out on the road, when you think he probably wouldn't have been doing that apart from being in a car with, his mum and dad.
Yeah.
So I think it's as understanding that it's not always, some people find adjusting really easy. They've missed that social contact. They're excited to get back into a workplace and work with people and see people. And for others, it's still very, very daunting for them.
I think just to echo that, one of the challenges we really had during COVID was actually people wanting to be in the office, and that they were, the regulations would come out, and it was almost, yes, you're not saying we have to work at home, we do need to come in, don't we? And so again, it comes back to recognizing the individual requirements, because we certainly took the approach. It's clearly there's obviously the impact of COVID directly, but there's also the mental health issues, and forcing somebody when the law didn't require you to absolutely be at home, getting that balance between what's right for the individual, and some individuals did want to protect themselves, and respecting that. And I think what we found particularly helpful was, again, giving people that clarity of, well, this is the job to be done, this is the output that's required, this is when you need to produce that output, but how you do it, when you do it, actually we can give you that flexibility of that framework, and really comes back to your point, Jesper, about listening to people and what's going to work with them. And everybody's an individual, and it's by understanding the individuals, then and having been a flexible employer in that sense, then tends to actually, people think, okay, I've been listened to, I'm going to give it my best shot, and commit to the company. So I do, I think it comes back to that understanding of people fundamentally, doesn't it? And that you care about the people that work for you, and try and accommodate their requirements where possible. So.
Yeah, I think it's also a real challenge here, because we have probably 100 people on the shop floor. None of them can work from home.
No, exactly.
You have to really be wary of that.
Absolutely.
and trying to explain that to people, and people can have their own personal requirements or their personal opinion on how things should work, but actually the company, there's no individual bigger than the company.
Exactly.
So we have to be really mindful of that situation, and they occur all the time. And what we are finding is the staunch homeworking only people who have been very vocal in that are actually coming back here and a few days in going, this is just fantastic. Oh my God, I can turn, I'm having interaction with people, and once they've got past the safety aspect and the concerns about how you're going to cross over with people, then we are really seeing a push back to this is going to this can work, we can come back to work. But you're always going to have the people that want that sort of hybrid, and
yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot of positives. I think we don't want to go back to how it was before, because there are advantages, aren't there? Like you were saying, Caroline, what's the value to you as an employee if you know that you can do the school run without any stress every day? That's massive, right? So that it's not just about the salary, it's about that flexibility could mean the difference between your lifestyle being something that you really enjoy rather than being a pressured environment that you're not really enjoying. So I think that's a really good point. I know, Jesper, we were talking as well before about just communication in general within the organisation, and how I think it's fair to say most organisations are probably prone to a few silos. We get working in our department, and then we talk about, this department are not doing this or the other. How have you found the benefit of breaking those silos down and working on your communication has benefited your organisation?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really key point. I think if you sort of go back to the inception of a company, you generally have these people come together, and they're sort of they're all covering a variety of roles, and you're trying to do everything. And then naturally, as your company grows, you start to create departments, and then those departments start to, they do their own job. So they create their own silos. And then as your company grows, you can't work in that disparate manner. You need to then come back together, and to cross over and really understand your internal customers. And I think we miss that although you may be doing a very standalone process within the company, there is an internal customer that will take that to the next stage, and then the next stage. So we've the understanding the whole cross-functional collaboration between teams, and how you can use an example here. We had a department that were outputting information to a CNC machine, and they were doing that very well. And then the people on the CNC machine would then receive it and then do what they're going to do. Well, the person that was producing it didn't really know fully what the CNC did or how it did it. So and there was instances that the program would then be changed when it gets to the CNC, because it's better for them to be that way. Now, if you don't create an environment to communicate, or create the best environment to communicate, that person's always going to stay in the same mode. They're in this forward mode rather than looking sideways. So, finally you get these people to go down and go, right, this is the machine, this is how it works. Your input is their output. So, how do we improve this? And suddenly they start talking to each other and going, well, actually, if you did this differently here, it would save me time. Or if you ordered this in a certain way, then I can order it a different way off the machine. And that's, and that's where you've got to understand that, growth creates its own problems. So if you get those teams working together on it, even, they can be 2 or 3 departments apart, but they still have an effect on each other. And by doing that, we're starting to, get a different ownership as well, because it reduces the over the wall activity of, I've done my bit, short term. Actually, the bit that I've done, how does it affect you? What does it do? So again, it goes, communication. We may as well just put a headline, communication, on this whole conversation. That's what it is.
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting because we were talking about career paths earlier, and I think that's so powerful if you're looking ahead and you can see there is a path to follow. It's not random. This is the path that I could take to develop my career. But I also, just coming back to our conversation, you were talking about your MD and being, proactive about trying people in new roles without being too concerned about outcomes. How have you found that has enabled the organisation to move forward?
Oh, it's a big part of the success here. Being future driven is so important in a company. And yes, you've got to understand that people do want to drive and push forward in their careers. Some people are quite happy where they are, and you've got to celebrate both of those. But certainly our MD and James Taylor, and as well as the team here, we're always looking for talent. We're always looking out for it, and that's why we have I think your self-nomination, Caroline, you mentioned there. We run a leadership program here, and people can apply for it. You are interviewed by the board, or whether you come on it, and it's a year program. It has a qualification at the end of it, and we have people all throughout the company. So on our shop floor, within our office departments, that have all been part of it. And actually, a lot of those people have gone on to be in different and higher roles within the company, but also a lot are still in exactly the same role they were before, but they've got a different way of thinking. So also every time we look, if someone wants to progress or move slightly somewhere within the company into a different role, there is always you can return. There's no closure. If it doesn't work for you, or it doesn't work for the company, you can always go back to the role you were before. And that's really important, because people, some people like to be out of their comfort zone, and some people don't. And as soon as you get to that point, that there's a tipping point, you've got to be realistic and go, right, we can move forward, or actually it's not for me. So yeah, we're forever looking for talent within. And if you can promote from within, there's so much power there, because your DNA is set. You already know.
Exactly. One of the things, just picking up on that, yes, is supporting people on their journey, isn't it? Because people have those aspirations, and we had an example 4 or 5 years ago now, where we were looking for a new inventory control manager, and we didn't think there was anybody internally, and we were recruiting some experts in their field externally. And then the girl that had started as an admin assistant literally a couple of years beforehand, she put herself forward, and I can honestly say, I'll admit, went in and think, well, we'll obviously give her the opportunity, but this will be an interview to understand how we can develop her for the future. Anyway, she put this presentation together and did an amazing job, clearly understood the challenges in that department, what the opportunities to improve were, how she was going to improve it. And at the end of the interview, we thought, we just can't not give her the job. She's got all the passion, she's got the knowledge, but she does need support on that journey from an expert, to give her some of the technical expertise of inventory management and so on. So somebody else who I've worked with for many years as an external consultant, we brought him on board to mentor her over 2 or 3 years to support her on that journey. And she's doing incredibly well now. And you just see that young talent who had a desire and a passion, but needed development, but how we developed her on that path. And and it's really satisfying as an organization to develop that, and the message that then sends out amongst other people across the company. Oh, well, actually they're prepared to give people that opportunity and support that opportunity. It really has a much wider impact than just the individual directly benefiting. So we find success stories like that support the culture that we want to engender.
I think as well, Alistair, just picking up on there when you said you brought the mentor in, and I think for people who are at the start of their career and even midway point in their career, having the right mentor to work with, to encourage them, to listen to them, and to let them know what opportunities are available, I think is really important. All too often we put people through a development program, really they're going through that on their own, rather than having the right person to help support them through that process.
Exactly.
Yeah, the mentoring part is so key, isn't it? Because you got the kind of theory development, the program you might have gone through, but it's when you actually, hit the tasks on a daily basis is when you need to be able to pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm struggling with this. What do you think I should do? And that's the real value, as you said. Some brilliant stories there.
And I guess we've all been on training programs where it's a great week or it's a great few days, and then it's at the end of the course you said, now how are you going to apply this, and you write all the best intentions down. Then a week into back to your day job, and I'll get back to that. And you need that continual development, don't you? So, just trying to learn from that.
And I think at the minute it's a big watch out. Everybody is just so busy that we forget that follow-up piece.
Absolutely.
And affording that time for people, because we just, everyone's just busy doing. And I think it's just reminding all ourselves that, you've got to put the brake on every so often and take a breath and catch up. And that's where I think mentors that are guiding people, being that sounding board, really, isn't it? Saying, look, pause, let's catch up, let's look at what you've learned. How have you embedded that, or have you remembered that bit? Because you just forget, don't you? Go on, I'm going to do this and this, and then a week in, and slowly bits start dropping off, don't they?
Yeah.
So the last.
Sorry, Peter, just to jump in here, because we're obviously on this whole internal culture side. I mean, I think something that we are responsible for, and we have to do, is make a psychologically safe working environment. Create an environment. Use like a meeting as an example. Ask questions before posing answers. Reward those who speak up. And this way, going back to the sort of mentoring or going to leadership side, if you can't do that or be successful at that unless you create that culture. So there is no such thing as a wrong answer. There's an opinion, but let's and I think it's like at the end of our leadership programs, they present and they come up with quite a unique example of where they think they could make a change. And of course, you've got lots of people in the room that are going, well, that ain't gonna work. We've tried that before. And if you start on that road, you've just lost all of what they've tried, they've achieved. So you have to give these opportunities a go. It is within your interest to make it succeed. But if it fails, it's not a bad thing, because they've had to go through that journey. So by creating that environment, that's how you get the correct culture internally.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point, and that ties in really nicely with the last point that we're going to talk about, which is really, what does effective onboarding look like? Because now I'm fascinated by this subject, because this is the sort of 90 days, the magic 90 days, where you're wondering, have I hired the right person? And they're thinking, have I joined the right company? Right. So it's kind of critical. I'm just interested to hear your thoughts on what you found makes the difference for the person that's got to transition back from, say, previous experiences, previous ways of doing things. And a bit like you just said, Jasper, you get a situation where you offer a suggestion and someone says, oh, we've already done that, or it didn't work. And you can very quickly deflate that new enthusiasm. So have you thought about this process and how it's working for you, or how you've been able to improve it over the years?
Well, there's a sort of onboarding side of
so looking at the so we've gone out, we've done the hard work in choosing someone with maybe the right values, we've thought that through, and then they join the company, and I think we've probably all been through the experience where you get your few days of induction, your laptop, your mobile, and we'll see you at the next monthly meeting kind of thing. So that's probably worst case scenario, but yeah.
This is a subject that really frustrates me, because we'll spend 5, 10, 15, 20,000 pounds on trying to find an individual, and then they come in and we don't give them the chance to succeed. Why would you not? The days of the employee is the only one that needs to stand out. They're well gone. We need to catch up. The employer needs to do as much to make sure that this is a success. So there are such simple things. And you're just using an example of someone joining in the office. Make the desk tidy. Make sure the IT is set up. Put the pen and pad there. send an email. There's an email in their inbox welcoming to them to the company. The team around them already know that person's coming. If that person's happy, you share their CV with them, with your colleagues. It is so simple, but we do it so badly. And from our perspective, bringing someone in, we'll create at least a 2-week plan, which is then going around the whole company, spending a day in each department, a department that they may hardly ever touch again. They need to know how it works, because again, it's an internal customer, or it could be further down the line that they get involved with it. But we really, really need to put so much into the onboarding of someone, to bring them in, to show them what the company is about. Because we just spoke, we're speaking about culture. Well, what's the culture? Is it sit down, off you go? Or is it, right, we can support you, we can do this, we could work on this together? And again, catching up with people regularly, have those catch ups, understand, listen to them. And I'm passionate about it, because there are so many companies that are so bad at it.
Yeah, one of the things I could just jump in there is that we start the onboarding process before the day they've even started. So having got the right recruit, hopefully recruited against our values, then from that moment of, right, we're offering you the job, till the beginning of day one, then we try to have various interactions just to familiarize themselves with the company, and not as in a formal way, or we don't give them volumes to read, but just feed them, depending on the position, relevant information. Perhaps come in and meet their colleagues, so that day one isn't day one. You start from maybe day minus 30, or day one minus 30, or day minus 60, depending on their notice period or what their history is. So when day one arrives, they're not walking through the door as I'm the new boy or new lady, and so we start that sort of familiarization program, and then they have a more formal, structured program, again depending on the role, but to bring them up to speed with their role, whether it's a production role or an office role or a sales role. So they'll have that structured induction program to meet their colleagues. They'll always have an introduction as a part of that, of what the company values are, what the company objectives are. Clearly they're clear on their role and the part they play in that. But then we also have, and which we've found again right across all functions, is that every 3 months then we'll have a new employee informal lunch, where the other directors or senior managers might be there, and it's just come together, and there's no presentations, there's no expectations. It's just this is the group of the latest recruits that have come into the business, and let's just have some casual time together and have a chat. And so they actually get to know their colleagues that may be from different departments, or the directors of the company, and so on. So just try to recognize the journey they're on, to give them the best opportunity of success. And obviously through that process there is the more formal, how are you getting on in the role from your perspective as well as ours, and addressing any issues that come up. But so we try to blend that from a pre-start date right through to what a normal period might look like, and that can vary depending on the person, the role, and their progression into the organization. So, but in all of that, always getting their feedback as well as giving them our feedback. So very much a two-way discussion.
I think it's an area probably with all organisations as well through the pandemic, where people have had to work from home when new people have started, and in one way it's been a better onboarding process, because they've actually had proper official time booked in, to have team meeting or Google Hangout sessions with everybody. But it's when you first meet them face to face. And I know a couple of weeks ago, first day back in the office for a while, and there was someone who I remember having a session with them a few months ago when they first started, and it's like meeting someone famous, because I've only kind of seen you on a computer screen before now. But I think it's something that I know at DFS we're now looking at all our separate onboarding processes for each different area of the business. Now we've changed. Historically we used to bring everyone up to our head office for a week for onboarding, which was great for that first week, but then it kind of fell down a little bit when they then went back out to their relevant business areas. So I know it's something that we're giving a lot of focus to now.
Yeah,
I think Alistair, just jumping in on your point there as well. I mean, we've got a fairly senior individual that's joining the company next month, and since Christmas that's been agreed. And every presentation that we've done in the company, or anything that we're doing some change, we're doing some strategic work, we've actually provided him with that presentation, and also with some supporting information about it, just so they have got an understanding, and there's just a communication back between the team. So when he comes in, he is not coming in blind. He's got an understanding of what's been going on over the last 3 months.
Yeah, and we've certainly found that one of the biggest areas, and we touched on the point we covered earlier, is around the management team. And when you've got that maybe team leader level, or junior manager or manager, who are generally in their role because they're good at the job that needs to be done, and hopefully we've developed some management skills in there, but it's actually getting them to take ownership that the company and the HR department can set up an induction program, but actually you and your team have got to deliver it, and it's and actually taking proper ownership of it, and not that, oh yeah, here's your induction program that HR have sent through. It's no, actually this is the induction program I, as the manager, have created for you, my member of the member of my team, and that's we've put a lot of work into that area, that really getting ownership of inductions, I think, is key. And it's not seen as something that comes down from a high. It's actually the person's manager that's fundamentally responsible for the induction. So I think that's an area we certainly needed to address, and continue to need to address.
And I would put the onboarding process under 3 key elements: operational, strategic, and social. So, operationally, you're making sure they have the right materials and knowledge. Strategically, you are ensuring, they're educated in the company's vision, the structure, the mission, expectation, etc. And then socially, meet their colleagues, make them feel welcome, promote openness.
Exactly.
Let them go into different areas of the company. Don't tie them to the desk. They need to go and see what other people do. So I always sort of focus around those sort of 3 elements.
Yeah, good point.
Well, we've got a question also in the Q&A here, which kind of touches on this. And the question is, does anybody have any experience in digital onboarding for a virtual organisation? Is there any advice on sort of the hybrid model as well?
I can't say I've...
Yeah, the only recent experience I have is that we appointed a new international sales director towards the end of last year, and when he was based in Denmark, and I mostly spent my time in the UK. So part of his pre-induction, if you like, process was really bringing him on board and bringing him up to speed, which was virtual. Not just because of the limitations on travel and so on, but the actual just distance in country. So we did sort of set up a structure where there was, obviously, with the use of technology and Teams and Zoom is relatively easy to do. And the whole interviewing process actually was done, most of it was done via Zoom. But then actually having those regular checks and what we found was you had to have more of a framework of discussion. So you actually prepared for the session probably more than you might have done if you were just, going down the corridor and having a chat, and you'd have that spontaneous discussion. And so it was definitely on both sides a more concentrate, well, let's make sure we cover the subjects that we want to cover and commit to those in writing. And then that created a framework for more informal discussion as well. But I suppose that was the biggest thing that we came out with, just ensuring that the preparation was even more thorough than it would perhaps be if you've got the opportunity just to interact with people, and if you forget something, you can nip down the corridor and catch up with them again. So it was that preparation structure, making sure you were covering the points, was certainly the biggest thing we found. So on both sides.
Yeah, that's valuable.
It must be very difficult, Alistair, on something like that. I mean, quite a key for someone coming in is the right cultural fit, and cultural fit is very difficult to get across. From my perspective, I find it very difficult across a digital platform to really get that.
Yeah. I mean, you're absolutely right, and it is far more difficult. And what was interesting, the way I found it interesting the way we did. We had the sort of the interview process of, is this person even going to end up in a shortlist type interview, and then we set up a sort of scenario where they had to come and present based on sort of three topics and we tried to, and we've done this on a number of roles, that they're presenting, but also the presentation creates dialogue. So we're not just sitting there, the questions aren't structured. That means they can just present the answers and we listen to the answers. It had to involve some dialogue as well. So through that, we got to know the person and behind the obvious answers, and that's what we tried to do. But having said that, and it at the end of it, it was right. Let's now go for dinner in a restaurant just to make sure we're both happy with each other and spend the evening together, because obviously it's quite a senior role. And so it's, again, I think for us, it's really in the structure of the questions that create dialogue rather than just answers. We felt that we needed to put more emphasis on that when it's virtual rather than sitting in a room with somebody.
Yeah, I think that's so true, that the preparation that needs to go into the virtual meetings, because that's just what you were saying earlier, Jasper, isn't it? About you don't have this opportunity to quickly turn around and maybe follow up with somebody afterwards. So you need to make sure the planning's done. So sadly, time has run away with us this morning, but it's been a fascinating conversation. Some of the highlights I've taken out from talking to you is really one, communication, right? I think we all agreed on that, whether it's from senior management to lower level or across the organization, just enabling people to get that level of communication and understanding as well of what people want out of the roles and how we can support them, and taking the time to do that. And then also, I think the other point that was really came out was that we can add, in this new kind of environment that we've got, as it's still so new, but we can add a lot of value to the organization and to people's lives by listening to what it is that is important to them. So I think those kind of thoughts really help us to see the value of nurturing that talent. You've all had some really great insights this morning on how you've done that with your different organizations. So I want to thank you for sharing your time, your expertise, and your insights with all of us today. Because my goal in doing this is that hopefully we can all take something away from this that's practical, that we could say, yeah, this is something I could do better in our organization, and start work on it tomorrow, which would be great. So thank you very much for joining us this morning. To Jasper, Alistair, and Caroline, thoroughly enjoyed our conversation, and look forward to seeing progress in the future.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much indeed.
Right,
thanks, Peter. Bye-bye.
Bye.